Hello, and welcome to the Success Showcase. I'm your host, Eric Lopkin from the Modern Observer Group. And with me, as always, is Chip Janiszewski from the Happiness and Success GPS. Chip, how are you doing this week?
I'm doing great. How about you, Eric?
Doing fantastic.
Just spent the weekend down in Greenwich with my son, both sons, daughter-in-law, and two grandchildren, doing a whole lot of things for Mother's Day. And my wife's name is Nancy, so she's Nana. And we had a ball. I just hope all you mothers and grandmas and people out there had a fantastic weekend too, because you all deserve it. We wouldn't be here without you.
Absolutely. Mother's Day is underrepresentative, I think. These are folks that spend so much time caring for others, and we really should spend a little more than just one day showing your mother how much you care.
Yep. Every day should be Mother's Day.
Well, we have a special guest this week. We have Thomas Ahern. Welcome.
Hey guys, thanks for having me.
Hey. Thomas, why don't you tell our listeners a little bit about yourself and what you do?
Sure, I'd be delighted. Well, like you said, my name's Thomas Ahern, and I live in Chester, Connecticut. Recently relocated back from Arizona after being out there for 8 years, but I'm originally from East Hartford, Connecticut. And my background I started as an educational psychologist and worked my way through the years. Eventually became a chief marketing officer for a behavioral health organization. And then I recently retired about a year ago. And you know how everybody in retirement, you start a new company. So I got together with my wife, who's been essentially a dog trainer for the past 15 years or so, but has transitioned into more of how do you use your canine to establish wellness in your life and in your relationships. And so I said, how can I combine what she does along with what I do? And so we founded a holistic sales management company where we help small business owners and entrepreneurs stay well while they're doing all of the things that go along with running a business, but at the same time look at sales management because that's the area that usually stresses them out, and that's my background. So we do audits, and we come in and we just support on a fractional basis entrepreneurs that are trying to grow their business to help people take advantage of what they have to offer. So I'm having a blast.
All right, so explain to our listeners the thought process that takes you from canines to sales support.
Yeah. Okay, so from canines, while my wife was doing all of the canine stuff, she also was getting certified as a integrative health practitioner. And that means, she does everything from wellness checkups to Ayurveda yoga. And she has a essential oils bar that has 265 medicinal grade oils. She's got a red light therapy table and a yoga studio and all the kinds of things that we used to refer to as sort of alternative interventions to help people stay balanced and connected to themselves and in their relationships. And for me, as a former educational psychologist and working for one of the largest canine assisted programs in the world called KALO programs, we had 64 golden retrievers, and we were helping young kids who were essentially adopted to learn how to be in relationship with their caregivers because of that early trauma as a result of relinquishment from they have a hard time with that. And as a person myself, as an adopted person myself, so I said, let's combine our forces, and that's what we did. And so we committed ourselves to setting up a new sort of way of looking at sales in terms of wellness and holistic sales management. And that's how we sort of got ourselves together. So it's a new line of thinking about, most people think of sales as being stressful and a 4-letter word and not something that people really like to talk about. But when you're an entrepreneur and you're excited about your product or your service, you want to tell the world about it. But there's a difference between marketing and telling people about your service versus converting them into actual paying customers. So that's really our sweet spot. How do we get people to go from cheerleaders and people that are excited about what you have to offer to actually getting into the service or becoming a customer of you. And that's something that people don't necessarily study. And you can still live a life of integrity and trust and have a really value laden experience when you learn that you're really just helping people solve a problem or bringing value to the market.
What? You mean you don't have to sell like a used car salesman?
Yeah, right. It is so weird when you think about it. That's what everybody, and hey, granted, every profession's got people that don't do well or as well in certain circumstances, but sales has really gotten hammered. But if you think about it, everybody's selling all the time. We all, whether you're a parent selling your kids on the right way to behave, or you're a teacher teaching something, or a therapist or what have you, we're all selling. And my experience in helping to create access to mental health services, and essentially teaching therapists and doctors and psychiatrists how to sell mental health services, because this country's got a problem in the sense that not enough people have access to those kinds of services. And so if you don't tell people about it and help them to feel like it's a trusting and a good experience and get rid of the stigma associated with that, then things don't get better. So I've had the opportunity to learn how to sell in a way that has a lot of integrity and is heartfelt and solution focused, and really more about giving than it is about telling and listening, right? So yeah, I think you're right, Eric, that it's not about being a used car salesman at all. Yeah.
No, it's holistic sales management, and you talk about fractional sales leadership, and basically starting out with a sales management audit and so on and so forth. So, I mean, you have a particular process that you follow to basically analyze what's going on and then pick the spots where you need to pick them. And then I love that term, fractional sales leadership, because it is piece by piece. And obviously it's different for everybody that you deal with, I'm sure.
And what's great, Chip, is that it's a lot less expensive than having to hire like a sales manager, where particularly in Connecticut, where 99% of our businesses are small, businesses, and they can't always necessarily hire a sales manager. And if you get it wrong, you've got to deal with that, which has its own consequences. But the way we work, it's pretty simple. We just come in and we ask 36 questions. I sit down with a business owner. It takes about an hour and a half to 2 hours, and I ask them 36 questions that are benchmarked against best practices from some of the larger sales organizations in the country. We answer those questions. We get to know each other. We build a relationship and some trust. Once I finish those questions, we've pretty much changed their game already just from the conversation. But then I run those answers through a software package that I have and produce a report. Kind of looks like this. Nice, leather bound, about 100 pages that I summarize. And then I go back and meet with them, and we say, hey, here are the gaps. We might be leaving some stuff on the table, but here's some things you're doing really well. And depending on where we're at with that, we can tackle one or two of those things, or on a month-to-month basis, and see where we go, see if we can make a difference in their company. So it's not a lot of risk up front as well, but we retail that audit at $500, and it takes me a couple hours to write it up and customize it, and it's fun because I learn a lot about people and where they're at, and we also do sort of a wellness component to that as well. So so how are you doing running your business? It's a lot to do, right? You're running your business, you're trying to be a parent, you're trying to be in relationship with a spouse or a significant other, and sometimes you get your priorities a little messed up. I've been in that situation myself, and so if we can just stop and smell the roses for a minute and get some perspective, and then if I can give them a little bit of a helping hand and craft a blueprint as to where we can go from here, and like you said, Chip, chunk it off month to month, and it feels like I'm still bringing important solutions to people, similarly that when I was a chief marketing officer for a behavioral health organization and creating access to behavioral health care. So in some ways, I guess I'm really doing the same. So my wife and I are partners. I got my son as an intern. It's pretty cool. He's got out of the Air Force. So he's sort of finding his way. And then I got a network of other people that just connected with over the years that I can bring in if I need to. But yeah, it's a new thing. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah, I think just having that takeaway, that report printed out for them, because most people don't take the time to do that. And they probably sit around wasting a lot of time just thinking about things, saying, what am I going to do? So taking the time to go through the questionnaire and have you put that together, even if that's as far as it goes, they
Yeah.
have value by dealing with you.
Yes. Thanks. Appreciate that. And that happens. People take the odds, say, okay, great, thanks for that. Now I'm going to go implement this stuff on my own, and I'm fine with that. But I do know that more likely than not, that you may not do all of those things, because usually the evaluation and the audit uncovers so much stuff that it's almost impossible for one person to do it. But either way, it's okay with me, and if I can help you also feel better about how you're doing things, that feels good too.
Yeah, and by having that piece, that person, even if they're not going to work with you, they're going to tell somebody that they got that from you. So you never know where that's going to go also, as far as a possible referral tool for somebody else coming to you.
Yeah. Yeah. So far the reception's been pretty good. I mean, people like it. I think, I know you're going to say something, Eric, but just as the last point around the sort of holistic piece, which is, I'm banking on the fact that the holistic time has come. It's like our society feels so fragmented and people feel disconnected more than ever. Technology's, gotten in the way there, and just so many, the pace of everything. And so I'm banking on the fact that you would never put those two words together, sales and holistic, management. Like, there's always been a drive to push and to push and to push and to have outcomes. But I think time has come now where people are real, and I think COVID had to do with when people reevaluated their lives, and that people are thinking about, like, it's not all about that anymore. It's about how you sell and how we interact with each other, and what's our culture like, and what environment do we want to be in, and what brings meaning and purpose to my life. And the outcome isn't always, about dollars and, and cents. Sometimes the outcome is about being in meaningful relationship and feeling good about who I am and what I'm doing in my life. And so I'm banking that holistic doesn't scare people or make people feel like it's sort of wishy-washy, or, whatever that word is. But so I'm hoping people understand that, and I guess we'll see, right?
Absolutely. So I love what you said earlier about it being about giving and not selling. As our listeners will know, we spent last week interviewing Bob Berg, who's the author of the Go Giver series. So we've been talking a lot about giving lately.
That's pretty funny.
Can you elaborate a little more on what there? Yeah, it says, and you have the Go Giver with you.
I give these books away to my customers sometimes because the lessons in this book are so fundamental to what I think is a good model to assimilate. That's pretty funny that you did that. Yeah.
So can you elaborate a little more on how you see it as giving?
Yeah, I think that there's so many valuable lessons over the years in terms of some of the icons in sales management, outreach, business development, that if you want to get something out of life, I mean, you're better off starting with, how can I give to somebody else? And so the business model that I've employed and actually developed over the years was, and that's why I start with the assessment chip, because for me, it's about understanding and having an intimate understanding of people, understanding what they're trying to do, what their vision is, what is their why. Why are they so passionate about what they're doing? And so if I stop and do an audit, I know it sounds technical, an audit, really it's just about, taking the time to understand another person and their situation. Then I can understand where their friction might be. I understand where their strengths are. I understand where their pain points might be. And if I have something that aligns to that pain or that friction or that challenge that they're having trouble with, if I have something that aligns with that, I can give that to them as a way of feeling like I'm, again, I started my career as a school psychologist. I've committed myself to beginning with, like, helping to nurture and help people fulfill their potential and taking the time to assess and understand what that was about, how they thought and how they feel. Well, this is very consistent with that. And that's the business model that I've always wanted to ascribe to, is that once I fully understand what they're all about and I can give them something to help alleviate a pain or solve a problem consistent with my core values of empathy and service and growth. So I guess that's what I mean by that. And at the same time, it also helps to extend the relationship to the point where now we've developed what's the core of that. It's like trust, right? If I take the time to have empathy and live in service, that those two elements lead to trust. And when you have trust, then people feel more comfortable purchasing or buying from you because they know that they can depend on you. You'll be there for them, and you're not trying to sell them a false bag of goods. You're giving them something that is aligned to the thing you took the time to understand. So does that answer your question, Eric?
It does. I love how you're aligning the sales with values and with getting to know the person. We saw it for a number of years, but it really took hold during COVID, that people are starting to realize that work and life are not separate things. Everything is integrated. And I think, your system helps them bring that into the sales process.
Well, that's a great point, Eric. I mean, and that's part of the frustration in life, I think, is that we've talked so much about work-life balance. And I think that leads to suffering because I don't think it's realistic. And I've always, my mentors have taught me about living an integrated life. And so for me, I'm never working and I'm always working. And I'm the same person in and out of my job. Now, I don't know. I'm not necessarily saying that everybody can do that or not. But the core values that I live by, and when I founded this company, I said, well, that's where I start. Let me start with what are my core values of me as a person and me as a service-oriented person. How can I bring those into my business so that the people that experience me outside of my business life hours or during, I still represent and still do the same stuff. So I think an integrated, you said it well, Eric, I think an integrated life is the thing that allows you to experience joy. And for me, joy is, as I talked to Chip about, joy is the product of a shared experience. And how else do you have that if you don't take the time to listen and understand other person?
Yeah, it's so important. We've talked about work-life integration for quite a while. And, as you said earlier, especially when you're dealing with behavioral health, we are seeing an epidemic of loneliness, of depression. And a lot of this is actually caused by trying to separate your work from your life and, plowing through work as though it's something that has to be done, but you don't really want to be there. And it's like, we need to do a better job of integrating everything to relieve some of that stress.
Yeah, I can't agree with you more. I spent the last, decade. Well, I think it was 2016 or 17. We established a big, hairy, audacious goal of reducing the current all-time high levels of anxiety, depression, and suicide in adolescents and young adults. And we were going to do that by 2028. And we're not there yet, but we were working really hard to create the integrated system to be able to at least create access to the right levels of care for people. But you're right. Even in this, what's funny, Eric, is like, even despite the fact that there are more and more programs, more and more mental health practitioners, more and more services, earlier interventions, all kinds of different things coming at it. But the problems continue to get worse. I mean, listen to this statistic. 7 children under the age of 14 die from suicide every day. Can you believe that? Like, wait a minute. I didn't even know what that was when I was that age. And now it's like just a common thing that we just, can't get our heads wrapped around. And, that leads into a whole nother conversation about the American family, but we don't have to get into that. But yeah, I think you're completely right in that well, and it's not just access to care. It's not access just to getting, because that's on that back end, right? That's after the fact that symptoms have started. I got problems. I'm responding to it. It's like, what's going on the front end that, whether it be stress reduction or it be, at least for me, from my perspective, it's similar to the topic we talked about earlier. It's like relationship. It's about people that feel, I've talked to Chip about this before, right? People who are connected in relationship don't kill themselves. It's people who feel hopeless, disconnected, and I'm hopeless that I have nothing to live for or what have you. That's who. So the key here is, how do we help people feel like they're in relationship? And it's the experience in relationship, whether however we define that, intimacy or what have you. When you're in relationship, and that experience, that's what builds new synapses in the brain that help people to feel connected, which is the best prevention tool from experiencing, the anxiety, depression, and suicide, and all kinds of things, drug addiction, all kinds of things that we're seeing. So that's what we try to do, and that's what my wife, with her wellness and her canines, how do you, and that's why we use canines with, adopted kids, is that, adults, caregivers are too scary to be connected with when you've had early trauma. But if you have a relationship with a canine, that canine loves you and accepts you, you can step on them, bite them, kick them, fall over them. And a golden retriever is the perpetual puppy that will continue to accept you and love you. And that's what eventually breaks through to that part of the brain, the amygdala part of the brain that needs to, and that's once you start feeling some reciprocity between you and that canine. Now the therapist helps to called transferable attachment, transfer those feelings of reciprocity onto an adult, where they can begin to establish relationship, which we experience by creating joy. Joy is the product of a shared experience and can be experienced in times of suffering, as who was the guy of Man's Search for Meaning? Wait, do I have that book in front of me too? Man's Search for Meaning, Viktor Frankl, who wrote that book and taught us all about how joy could be experienced in a time of suffering, which brought meaning and purpose to your life. And that's why parenting is so funny. That parenting is really hard. It causes a lot of pain and suffering, but it's something that will make you the happiest and most joyous you could ever do, right?
Absolutely.
Sorry to go off on that tangent there.
That's okay. But so in what you're doing, there's not just a lot of psychology involved, but it sounds like there's also neurology involved.
Totally. That is absolutely correct. And it's a work of love, and it's what's fascinating about it is that once you start explaining it to people, they go, aha, I get it. And if people are like me, it's like, I didn't know this my whole life, and all of a sudden I said, oh my goodness, now I got to spread the word about this to other people so that they can experience it and share it themselves. And so when it comes to our sales management practice, essentially we're doing the same kinds of things when it comes to an entrepreneur running their business and trying to be a parent and trying to be connected. And so we're trying to help them be connected to their business and to their relationships around them, and not let that business become a traumatic force in their life. And at the same time, which I have to get back to, is like, how many people have studied, the tactics and the scientific methodology of sales? And so that's the part where I also get a real kick out of helping people to look at how sales can be an integrated part of their life and their business, and help them, grow their company and feel the experienced success that is usually the reason why people are doing it, not just because they want to have more people experience their service or product, but they also need to, make a living.
Right. And sales is really about making that connection. It's about building the relationship and solving a problem for the customer. It's not, we've all seen in the movies where the salespeople are talking about different methods for sales and they all have catchy names. the reverse, and different tricks they use. And sales isn't really like that. It doesn't work that way.
Yeah, I think those days are over. I mean, those days are over. People are pretty savvy now. The internet has changed a lot. Everybody's got a flashy website. You can get all the information you possibly, and most people have, done a lot of research before they even talk to the salesperson now. And so some of the latest research was interesting that as part of the sales audit and the best practices, when we looked at what do salespeople do, they don't really sell. Salespeople, how they spend most of their time is educating people. They're just teaching people about a service or teaching people about a product or something peripheral to that product or service around the outskirts of it to help people to create awareness and understanding so that people become more empowered to make educated decisions about the thing that they're, either looking at or trying to, figure out whether they want to commit to it or not. And so really it's about people, and you can see social media. That's why it's flooded. You see so much social media where everybody's coming out with tons and tons of literature and books and content that helps bring people along in the process so that, like, hey, I'm an educated consumer. And again, as a former educator, it lines up perfectly with the stuff that I love to do. So I guess I'm been feeling blessed that I get to do this every day, and I guess you probably guys do too.
Excellent.
You've been doing a podcast for 9 years or whatever.
Yeah.
So that's what you're doing, right? You're bringing people along. You bring guests on like me to educate the public about different topics, like the Go Giver. I mean, what a great topic to be able to bring to your listeners and lessons in life about, and particularly how important that is in today's environment where a lot of our values have shifted and changed, and we've lost a lot of the qualities that make us human. And so the more that we can teach heartfelt lessons like that, I really appreciate what you're doing.
Thank you. All right, so we are just about out of time. So Thomas, if somebody wants to get a hold of you, have a business audit done for them, utilize your services, how can they find out more?
Well, can I leave my phone number?
If you want, that's up to you.
Yeah, I don't mind. My phone number is 860-876-2040. And because if I tried to say go to my website, my guess is it would get messed up, but it's your-salesconsultant.com. And just to finish it, I'll tell you one quick funny, hopefully it's funny. If it's not funny, you can cut it. Okay. The reason I named the company Your Sales Consultant, because I had this vision. I was pretending I'm calling up Chip. I'm calling Chip. He's an entrepreneur in his office. He just got back from South Africa or whatever. And I call and someone picks up for him, an assistant or what have you. I go, hi, is Chip there, please? Well, maybe. Who's this? I go, oh, it's his sales consultant. It's your sales consultant, Thomas Ahern. And I can see this person. Hang on a second. Chip, your sales consultant. Thomas Ahern is on the phone. And Chip goes, I didn't even know we had a sales consultant, but I'll talk to him. So we'll see if that works. That's not a trick. Right. It was just a funny story, okay?
I like that.
Oh, thanks.
All right. So, Chip, what do you think is the big takeaway for our listeners this week?
Well, actually, the origin of Chip, my birth certificate says Edward Joseph Janiszewski Jr., and I left the hospital as Chip. So there's another Chip story for you. Anyway, I love holistic sales consultant. Obviously, the three of us have been around a long, long time. Mankind has basically been the same, but as far as being saturated with everything moment to moment, as opposed to growing up with 3 television stations and daily newspapers, we are just totally blasted by everything. And what I like to do is talk about just returning to simplicity. Basically, as human beings, we all come from the same source, which is good, but we all were born with a free will, which means trying to figure things out and so on and so forth. And there's more and more material about figuring things out than there's ever been, and there will continue to be that. Whereas everybody out there, you talked about consumer psychology, everybody, they're not wearing their name badge at a networking meeting. Everybody's just wearing a sign that says, what's in it for me? And what's in it for me isn't the price, it isn't the product, it's solving a problem. and those kind of things. It's about relationships because people want to deal with people they know, like, and trust. So the integration between life and business, it's just there. It is. That's the way things are. So your approach is absolutely getting back to the basics where we all come from. And you people who are listening out there, I'm sure you're nodding your head saying, aha, yes, yes, yes. So I love what you're doing. I love the approach of taking an analysis first, a little sales audit, writing things down on paper, whether you're going to use it or not. At least you've got that far, and you've made one step closer to integrating your business life and your personal life, which have to be the same, because basically whatever you do in business, whatever you make monetarily is just going to be a facilitator for whatever else you want to do in life. And that should take priority. So you got to plan for that too. So Thomas, your approach is fantastic. And I know that your closest clients can come out and visit you folks too, because you have a wonderful place out there where they can go on a retreat and do a whole lot of things out there too. So
yeah, we didn't talk about that. That's true, Chip. Appreciate the call out.
Yep.
Yeah, I think for me, the big takeaway is also looking at the process holistically. You know, sales is an integral part of whatever business you're in. But I think even more important was the way you phrased it about, you know, sales isn't just about products and services. If you're trying to get out the message of mental health, behavioral health, this is also sales, and the processes can help people get the mental health assistance they need if behavioral health experts actually use them. So it shows that being a salesperson isn't that stereotypical image that so many of us have seen in movies and television. This is something we all do on a daily basis, whether it's selling something in our business, selling somebody on getting help for a problem they have, selling yourself to a potential employer if you're a job seeker. Sales is integral to everything we do, and looking at it holistically really makes that impact. So I think that's the big takeaway for me this week. You've been listening to the Success Showcase. You can catch every episode at xvadio.com, the Apple Podcasts app, Google Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Audible, Amazon Music, and wherever you find podcasts. Remember, make this your best week ever and make next week even better. We'll see you then.